Hey, welcome, folks, to another episode of the Church Solutions podcast. We are at episode number 380, and my name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Steve, we are in the sweet time of the year here in Tucson, Arizona. The weather is perfect. I know people listening around the country and the world probably could care less, but I like this time of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like we always miss the just right phase. We usually go from the too cold to the too hot, skip over the just right.
I think it's just right, though, don't you? Right now?
Yeah. This past couple of days definitely been that way.
Yeah. So, anyhow, all right. So, folks, thanks for being with us. That's the weather report for today. Let's move on to traffic now. We've got a webinar coming up. As if you don't know, we do webinars now every month. We've been doing webinars for many years, but not every month. But we're doing them every month here, and we're trying to do these things to help your church and your ministry and you succeed. This webinar is going to be called "Why." What is the title? Why you should choose software?
Why choose a software encoder like vMix?
And
so we're going to go over the pros and cons of software encoders and give a major highlight to vMix because we have the guy from vMix that's going to be part of it.
Yeah.
Heath Parker.
Heath Parker is going to be our guest from down under. vMix, in case you don't know, is down there in Australia, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to get down there to see him because I'd like to go to that country. But yeah, so that's May 16th, and that's going to be a different time. We normally do ours like noon Eastern time, but this time it's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern time on May 16th, 3 o'clock here where we're at. And so that's because Heath is down under and there's 17-hour time difference.
Yes, he'll be a day ahead of us at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, so if you want to know what happens in the future,
yes,
get on this webinar and he can tell you what happens in the future, at least by 17 hours. So the way you sign up, how do you sign up for this, Steve? How do you sign up for this free webinar?
If you go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv, you can sign up there.
Webinar.streamingchurch.tv is where you can sign up for the webinar. We've done other webinars. We did one recently on Chat GPT and AI. That was last month. Actually, technically this month. We did it here in April.
Just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you can learn more. That was a great webinar. If you're interested in AI and Chat GPT and all this stuff, that's the latest buzz, and how it might work with your church and streaming and those kind of things, you need to listen to this webinar or watch it. And again, you can go to that
streamingchurch.tv/webinar to see the recording.
Yeah, so you can go there and see that. If you missed all that and you're confused as I am, you can just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. So the webinars coming up.
Yes, it's simple. The webinar before to sign up is webinar.streamingchurch, and the webinar after it's done is streamingchurch.tv/webinar.
Yeah, simple for you.
Yes.
All right. So yeah. All right. So what else we got going on? Anything else we need to tell people before we do?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we get a question. We're doing this podcast, and we've already done a blog on it. We get questions on a regular basis about, hey, I want to do streaming video, or maybe you're already doing streaming video, but there's questions come up like, hey, what kind of a camera should I get, or cameras should I have to do streaming video? We get this question quite a bit. And so I thought today we would tackle it. If you want to play along at home and take notes at home, you can just go to blog.streamingchurch.tv. Again, that address is blog.streamingchurch.tv. We're just throwing all these domains at everybody, and just so you can remember that. And Steve, if you're watching the video, Steve just got up and walked away. Now he's back. He pulled a Mike Gray on us there.
I did. I told you it's so nice. The windows are open. And the guy with the leaf blower decided he's going to wander around in front. And so it was getting really noisy. So I had to close it.
Yeah. Well, good for you. My next door neighbor's dog, I'm sure, will start barking any moment now. So, all right. So let's jump into this. So cameras. Let's talk about cameras. So there are 4 or 5 different types of cameras that you could consider if you're going to do streaming video. So why don't we just jump into this and let's just briefly look at them, shall we, in the next 20 minutes or so?
Sure, sounds good. And this is probably going from, well, maybe not. I won't say that. From one of the best solutions to one of the least
One of the
expensive
worst
solutions.
solutions.
One of
The
the
best
least
to the
expensive.
worst.
These to the least
The
expensive
different types
route.
of cameras. Yeah. You're
Yes.
referring to my notes here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking at
yeah,
your notes, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of descending order, but let's probably a good way to go.
All right. Well, yeah.
So
So
off the top, and we did a webinar on this
we
with
did.
PTZ optics,
We did.
and it has to do with PTZ cameras.
PTZ cameras. So PTZ cameras, you ought to catch the webinar if you have not done that. But PTZ stands for pan, tilt, and zoom. And they are really improving a lot. Of course, our friends at PTZ Optics, as you just said, we had Stephen Haywood on our webinar. We've had them on the podcast here before too. They are really moving along as far as technology. And boy, I tell you what, I used to say they're not any good years ago because they were slow and jerky and herky jerky and all that. But now the new ones are really smooth when it comes to moving around. They can follow you around. If I was going to do streaming video now for a church, and somebody said, "Hey, what kind of a camera should I get?" I would get PTZ, and that's the route I would go because I think they're not the cheapest, but
They're
I
not
think
the
they're
cheapest,
great.
but yeah. So advantages, pros, cons. So main advantage PTZ cameras, you can get a slew of them. You can get several of them, and have one person operate all of them.
Yep.
So I mean, we're moving into that mode at our church, and you can do presets where you can set up a bunch of different camera shots. And if you're, getting like a TV studio, you say, give me shot 312, give me shot 408, and you just on the computer, on the controller, you just punch the button and camera zooms to that zoom level and angle and stuff, and you got that shot really quick, so you can set up, give me the lead singer leading worship, give me the guy on keyboards, whatever. You can set all those things up and have them all preset and just jump around and look like a real pro.
Yeah, they're really good. I don't know what the downside would be. I mean, they're going to cost some money, but there's all sorts of different price ranges and depending on all the bells and whistles you want, right?
Yeah, there's probably a little more training. I mean, if you're moving from, you have a camera operator where the guy has the camera either on a tripod or, a handheld or something, moving to the PTZ, they're going to need to know, okay, how do I pan, tilt, zoom, and how do I manage this interface, and how do I switch from one to the other, and that sort of thing. So
you're saying it might be a little complicated for new people?
Maybe a little more complicated for a brand new volunteer, where you could just, you could grab somebody and say, point this camera at the pastor, and they'll know how to do that. Whereas, you say operate this PTZ, it may take 10 minutes for them to show them how to do everything.
Yeah, a little bit of practice, but yeah. So I think so. So PTZ cameras, that would be that's one type of camera you might want to consider getting for your church streaming. All right, so let's move on, shall we?
We shall.
DSLR cameras. I'm not even sure. What does DSLR stand for? Do you remember?
So SLR was the popular single lens reflex.
There you
is
go.
What it stands for.
That's right. I
DSLR
just wrote a blog on it. I couldn't remember. So yeah, go ahead.
Digital
single
lens reflex, and within this camp, there's actually some varieties there as well. I guess they most of the DSLRs, where it's a single lens reflex, it has a mirror in it, and so you're looking through the viewfinder through the lens, out the lens, so you see exactly what the video capture element is going to see, and then in the mirror flips, and it's broadcasting that piece to your digital what's it called, CCD, so that it's capturing the image there.
Now these cameras kind of look, most of them look a lot like the ones you'd walk around with around your neck. I mean, a lot of them do, right? I mean,
They
they're
typically have interchangeable lens, so
yeah.
that's
So you can,
the
that's the
primary
pro.
deal.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the pro, is you can change out the lenses. And I mean, I know there's obviously some that are really big and huge, but there are some that are sorry, I bumped my mic here. There are some that, they're not really large, and you might see a typical tourist walking around with something that looks like that.
Yeah, I mean, even within all of these, there's consumer grade,
Yeah,
and there's professional grade,
yeah,
and then there's prosumer grade, which is kind of in the middle of that. So there's DSLRs that are really good. That I have a DSLR that we have take pictures of the family and stuff with, and
right.
it's it's a very good. And you can buy really expensive lenses as well. You can buy a professional grade lens and stick it on your consumer grade DSLR.
Yeah, kind of pricey though, right? I mean, I didn't look up the prices.
It depends on where you enter the game. I mean, the price ranges are going to be, I was just looking this up, $400 and up
Wow,
for a DSLR.
really? That's all?
And
I
when
was thinking there were more.
again, the lenses they'll give you a short focal length lens,
Yeah,
an inexpensive lens when you buy the DSLR. But most of the time you're going to want to upgrade your lens to a telephoto lens, or,
yeah,
or a more capable lens, a zoom lens.
yeah.
Um,
So this could give you some really nice video if you get it,
yes.
if you make the right choices on the lens and have it set up right. So the
Yeah. Yeah. It's
DSLR
probably
camera.
the most capable with regard to video quality, because you can
Yeah.
buy the lens separate, and the lens is going to determine your video quality,
I
as well
remember
as the resolution and such of the.
I remember years ago, and I don't know where I got this, but I remember reading something years ago about these for streaming, and somebody said don't get them for streaming video. But I don't remember where I saw that, and it was a long time ago, and I don't really know the whole situation there. But so I've always kind of steered away from them, based on somebody's opinion that I can't even tell you
You can't tell you the why, huh?
who it was or why at the time. I can't remember why, but
Yeah.
I know they can be a little maybe complicated to set up. Maybe, I don't know, is focusing the lenses and getting them. I don't know, the depth or something. I don't remember now, but anyhow,
Yeah. Your
something
pros are going
to
to
look
use the
at.
DSLRs, so they're going to be the most capable. So yeah,
Now, does a live church, a church you go, do they have
I
DSLR
believe
cameras? I
so.
think one of them is, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
may. I think they moved to all DSLRs. They were
yeah,
high-end camcorders, which is our next category.
yeah.
I think they're all
Trying
DSLR.
to
I could be
remember.
wrong.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I was there. All right. So we've covered. So really, as we talk about this, you really need to do some research. Those of you listening, but these are some different types that we're covering here. So we've covered PTZ very briefly, DSLR, and now it's camcorder time. This is kind of my favorite.
Yeah. So camcorders, again, you're gonna the price ranges are going to vary, um, depending on the quality of the camcorder
Yeah.
that you get. So, I mean, these are really popular.
Well, they're
Um,
small. They're very small. Most of them are.
yeah,
And like you just said, I mean, over the last 5-10 years, the quality has really gone up as far as the video,
yeah,
and they're easy to use. Um,
yeah.
and
They're gonna, unlike the DSLR, they're gonna come with the lens that comes with the camera,
yeah.
so it's tuned for that camera. And
But you normally can't change out the lens, right?
no,
On
that's what
a
I'm saying. You
camcorder,
can't change
you're
out the
stuck
lens.
with that. With a DSLR, you could.
Yes,
That's a big
DSLRs, you
feature,
just, like the pros will have three lenses in their bag, and they'll just swap the lens and
right?
put a new lens in. And
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, there's consumer grade camcorders, and then there's, I guess you would say, professional grade
yes,
camcorders. Uh, I've always, I've always recommended when people are new to streaming and they're trying to figure out what to do. I remember this many years ago. We've been doing this for a long time now. I would say, well, do you have a camcorder around, laying around somewhere? And somebody say, yeah, I got a camcorder for my kids and stuff that when they were growing up. I said, well, if you don't have much money and you want to get into streaming video, here's a very good way to start. And when it comes to video and stuff, you really need to be able to do the lighting. We're getting spammed here. You really need to do the lighting as a big factor in whatever you're doing. So and with camcorders, that's really important, because if your lighting's not good at your church, that could be a problem. So, and we've said this for years, the better the camera, in most cases, the less you would have to worry about the lighting in many cases.
Yeah, or vice versa. The better the lighting, the worse, the least less you have to work about the camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, and most churches are not really they're not designed for bright light setup, so can invest a little bit more in the cameras. One of the key things as you're choosing cameras is, and as we kind of walk down this pyramid here, is optical versus digital zoom capabilities. So your DSLRs are going to be 100% optical zoom, and most of your camcorders now, I think, are going to have a pretty wide optical range, because when you get into the digital zoom, then you're just basically zooming in on a portion of an image, and so you start losing quality when you're doing a digital zoom. Whereas an optical zoom, you're not going to lose that quality.
You know a lot about these cameras. You should have wrote the blog.
I don't know about that.
How do you know so much about these things?
I don't know. My dad was really into the photography, so yeah.
So my dad was too, but we used Polaroids.
Yeah,
we did. I'm serious. We had Polaroid cameras.
My dad was, yeah, he's quite a bit older. His heyday was in World War II, was in Germany, so he picked up a bunch of very nice, very expensive for the day, for the 1940s era, Leica cameras and some other cameras. So he was really fascinated with it, and I didn't really catch the bug.
That's interesting. No, that's fascinating. So he stole cameras from the Japanese and the Nazis. Is that what he did?
Oh, he bought cameras.
Oh, okay.
And I think mainly from Germany. Germany.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Let's move on here before we lose the last 2 or 3 people listening here.
All right. So we have camcorders. So DSLR, camcorders. Camcorders is probably the meat and potatoes, as you say, of the streaming video world. Most people are going to have a camcorder, and it's probably where we primarily will point more people as you move up the chain and you want to improve your quality with video. DSLR is probably a good choice, and then just capabilities with PTZ is up there as well. So then you have next on your list, which is, I haven't even, do you know churches that are doing this? Action cameras, which we've kind of specified as like GoPros. So multi-weather.
Yeah. GoPros. These are the small little cameras. You've probably seen people wearing them on their head or a hat, right? Or on their bicycle. I can't think of anybody off the top of it. I think some churches have used them for special events or use them as an extra camera. So in fact, that reminds me of a time you and I, it wasn't really a Go camera, was it? That where we decided we were going to try to put a camera on somebody's guitar.
Yes, it was not a GoPro. Yeah,
it wasn't a GoPro, but it reminds me of that because it's a small little camera, and we had this bright idea. Hey, let's put a camera on somebody's guitar.
Well, so we actually stole the idea from another church that was doing it.
Okay,
and they put the camera on, and if churches out there are interested, they put it on the neck of the guitar. So it was looking down the neck of the strings of the guitar to the guitarist playing guitar. So I thought it was a great shot.
I thought it was too, and everybody else on the staff said no, including Mike Gray, who was on staff at the time. Now he's with us.
It's probably before its time. It'll I'm
We
sure
do
make
that.
a,
Yeah.
if you're doing a lot of switching, if you watch a professional concert or something like that, you're going to see these kind of shots. So
Yeah, special shots, like from the ceiling looking down on the drummer, or while he's beating the heads of the drum or whatever. So these action cameras, I mean, like I said, I would not recommend them to do all your streaming video with, but I think that maybe if you wanted to do something special like a baptism somewhere, maybe
yeah,
outside, or
if you
some
have
kind
a
of a ceremony.
opportunity for an action type shot, which is typically a close up, which
Yeah.
if you're doing a church service, you're typically there's a camera in the back and the action up front. And so these things would not work well for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to stick one on the shoulder of the pastor doing the baptisms of the person
Yeah.
going under, then yeah, that would be great.
I mean, they're fun little things. Again, I wouldn't recommend it. I know I've talked to somebody that is like, that was, because we do streaming video in case you're new to us, and I know I've talked to people about this and like, oh, I've got this GoPro. Can I use it to stream? Oh yeah, but the other downside to it is in many cases audio. So when you start, when you start getting into some of these little things, and audio, we will beat this drum. Speaking of drums, audio is really important when it comes to streaming video. And so if your audio isn't very good, people aren't going to stick around. You can have a great video, but if your audio stinks, it's not a good thing. So a lot of these cameras, like the action cameras we're talking about here, these GoPros or whatever else is out there now, many times the audio is not the best, or at least the way to get audio into your stream.
Yeah.
And so that can be a challenge, and that can be a downside to something like that.
Yeah. I think almost all, maybe not all, but almost all churches have at least a soundboard or some form of sound system, because they typically will mic who's ever speaking. Yeah. And so you want to get your sound from that source and not from a microphone that's on a camcorder or an action camera, yeah, or even into our next category there. You don't want to get this, you don't want to draw the audio from there, because then you're going to be suffering in it. And as you've said many a time, people will put up with bad video, but they will not put up with bad audio. Yeah. If you can't hear what's going on, if you can't understand what's happening, people are going to bail. Whereas they'll put up with some skipping frames, or yeah, a bad video shot or something,
or maybe a resolution not as high as you might want. But yeah. All right, so let's move on here. So speaking of other stuff here, as we go through these cameras, smartphone cameras. Now, everybody's going to talk about how good the new iPhones cameras are, and the Google Pixel or whatever it is. That's the Google phone, right? Google Pixel, is that what it's called?
Yep.
So, the smartphones have come a long ways when it comes to recording video and stuff. But again, you share what you think about this, but again, I'm going to go back to audio, because you really want to make sure you have good audio, and audio, that could be the weak point.
Yeah, our common response is we'll get people that say, can I use an action camera? And it's the, yeah, but, or they say, can I use a smartphone camera? Yeah, but, and the last one we have there is, yeah, but as well, but not something we would strongly recommend. So the smartphone camera is typically people say, well, that's all I got, so I'm going to encode from my smartphone. I'm going to send the stream up from the smartphone. I don't even have a computer. I don't have anything, but I do have a smartphone. And yeah, you can do it. But the video quality is not going to be that great unless you stick the phone right there. And the audio is not going to be good either, because you're going to sound like you're in a can of sorts, because you'll have one microphone that's tiny, very tiny, picking up whoever's speaking, as well as any of the noises in the sanctuary and that stuff. So
you can load a live encoder on your smartphone, and you can, as you just alluded to, you can stream with it. I would say these are good for close-ups. If for some reason, if you want to do a close-up shot of somebody, because that way, if the phone's close, the microphone's close as well.
Yeah.
And, so the video is going to look pretty good, hopefully, and the audio will be good for close-ups. But so I would use these for special things like recording. And I did this years ago with your pastor, Jeff Love. We would record Mondays, the day after the service on Monday morning, we would record a little promo for what was coming up. Or maybe we would quickly review what we talked about Sunday, and we would use the smartphone, and we used my iPhone.
The key difference is you're in a small room with a smartphone, and in a small room with a smartphone worked great.
Yeah.
You're in a big sanctuary and you've got a smartphone on one end and a person speaking on the other. Not so good. So
not so good. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the last one down the food chain here. And that would be webcams, something that we're both using right now to record. This podcast is obviously, we strip the audio and put it on all the places you get the podcast at, but we also have this on YouTube and on our website, streamingchurch.tv. So we're both using webcams here because we're just a couple feet away from the camera. We do have microphones in front of us here, so the audio is hopefully a little better. But webcams are obviously, very inexpensive. They're not as expensive as all these things we just talked about here. They're quick, they're portable. And when the pandemic hit, we had people calling us left and right wanting to do streaming video, and they couldn't get equipment because it was just selling out right away. And I remember telling this one guy, "Do you have a laptop?" "Yes." "Well, here's what I'd encourage you to do. Since it's the pandemic and nobody's in your church, or at least a few people at the most, do you have a stack of bricks you can put your laptop on and open up the deal and put a live encoder on and stream?" And then it'd be like these podcasts we're doing. It's just, talking heads here. So you can do it in a pinch. You can, and I think we even have some customers that are doing webcams right now, but they're not doing what typically churches do. They're doing special sessions or something online. So webcams work, but again, lots of limitations to them.
Yeah. And our little pyramid here of top to bottom. One of the benefits of the bottom of the pyramid is you can get a zero team or a very limited team and get some streaming done. So, if I have zero support in my church and I don't, to run anything, but I can stick a smartphone up on the podium while I'm speaking, I could stream with a smartphone, or the same with a webcam. I could have my computer up on a podium and turn that on and start and stop, and I could be the subject matter and the streamer at the same time with kind of these items at the bottom of this thing. So if you don't have volunteers, you don't have the budget, in a pinch, you can make it work.
Yeah.
But probably not the best.
Again, not the best
for the viewer.
Yeah, not the best experience. But here's what I always say, and I read this somewhere: despise not small beginnings. And so, if you're starting out in ministry, starting out in the church, all these things, the topic of this podcast is, what kind of camera should I get? It's the same on the blog. Well, a lot of this is going to depend on your budget. Do you have what kind of budget do you have for cameras? And there's other factors involved, as we've just talked about here for the last 25 minutes. So despise not small beginnings. If you need to start somewhere, start with whatever you got. Yep. And it can, God can bless it, and you can move up and continue to increase as God increases your ministry. So that's the bottom line here.
Exactly.
But as you have said over the years, I've gotten this from you. When somebody asks about a camera and they call us, it's like asking about a car. What kind of car should I get? Well, depends on your budget, depends on your needs, depends on what you're trying to do. What's your vision? What are you trying to do? And where do you see yourself in a couple of years or 5 years? So there's lots of cameras out there, lots of different types of all these cameras we mentioned, these 5 or 6 different types. There's tons of different ones under each category. So you got to do some research, and we can help you.
And along those lines, things change as you go along. I talk I mean, I've got kids that are going through stages of life, and early on, if you say, what kind of car you want, they just wanted the most affordable, reliable thing that they could get around in. So there was a certain answer for that. And they start having kids. And like, oh, those kids don't fit in that thing anymore.
They
So
don't fit in the Honda anymore.
yeah, they don't fit in the Honda anymore.
Yeah.
So we need something that will accommodate some kids and is affordable and reliable, so, and then just your needs change as you depending on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. So if we can help you in any way, let us know. You can, Steve seems to be much more qualified about this, so you can just email him. Just go to support at streamingchurch.tv. Hey, subscribe to our podcast if you have not yet. Wherever you get your podcast, subscribe to the Church Solutions podcast and give us a rating. And we would love it if you do that. Don't forget, webinars every month this year. Every month there's a webinar coming up. And this one coming up next is May 16th on software, live encoders coming up.
And we're going to be giving away. We've given away a lot of stuff.
That's right, we do. I forgot about that.
And for you attend the webinars, the PTZ one, we gave over a $2,200 camera.
We did.
Was given away to one of the lucky attenders. So we're going to be giving away stuff at this one as well. So sign up, and you'll not only get the value of the webinar, but you might walk away with a prize.
You might get a prize. We're doing one a month after that on hardware encoders. So, and then we got several of them already lined up, right? So there's lots of things coming up. So sign up for our webinars. And again, to do that, just go to where do we go? Webinar.streamingchurch.tv, right?
That's it.
So, all right. We're done here. Thanks for your patience, everybody, with me. And thank you very much, Steve Lacy, for your input as usual.
I'm glad to be here.
All right, guys, well, take care of yourselves. We'll catch you again on another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast. I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you later.